lately I've been looking for an additional AI coding tool to complement my Claude Code workflow, especially now that Anthropic sent out this email, limiting users' usage. I knew it was too good to be true, and it is. So for the past week, I've been trying out this new front-end AI coding tool called Kombai. They recently launched, so there's a lot of buzz around it. I was lucky enough to get my hands on it through the Kombai Creator Program, and they were kind enough to sponsor this video. As someone who has tried a lot of the AI coding tools out there from bolt.new, Cursor, Windsurf, Claude Code, I have to say that Kombai does exceptionally well when it comes to front-end development, especially UI state management and things along those lines, as well as working within the newest and latest frameworks like Next.js 15 and Tailwind 4, React 19. It just knows your stack really, really well. And this is because Kombai has built-in context tools for each supported front-end libraries. I'll show you more of this later in the video. I don't really use Kombai for prototyping or vibe coding. Really, what I find most useful about it is building UI, like actual usable code, which it writes really well, and iterating on that. That's really the main use case for this. And how this fits with my workflow is that I basically use Kombai to create all the front-end things, and then the rest is done with Claude Code. So in this video, I want to show you my new workflow with Kombai and putting it to the test, building a complete Kanban board inside my Next.js Electron application, Claude Maestro. Before I get started here, what is Kombai? Well, according to them, Kombai is the first domain-specific front-end AI coding agent that outperforms out-of-the-box frontier models, especially when it comes to generating front-end code from images and or text prompts. To get started with Kombai, all you have to do is open up your VS Code fork of choice. There's a gazillion now. I'm just using the vanilla version of VS Code. Search for Kombai in the extension sidebar and then install Kombai here. If this is the first time you're using Kombai in a particular project, you want to hit the stack icon and go to edit. There's a scanned workspace button here. You can hit it. It's basically just going to analyze your project and make sure it knows what framework and libraries that you're using. As you can see, it's noticed that I'm using Next.js 15 with Zustand and App Router, Chassis and UI, Tailwind 4, and Lucid Icon Pack. Obviously, I can change the tech stack to whatever I want. For example, if I want to change Next.js 15 to React 19, I could. I can change it to Zustand. I can change it to React Query, and the router to TanStack Router, Chassis and UI to Daisy UI, and then all I have to do is hit save. Now that Kombai knows my stack, let's take a look at the current state of this project. So this is Claude Maestro. It's basically an open AI Codex clone for Claude Code, basically a way for me to manage parallel instances of Claude Code. I have one task that is completed in the active tab, and then I have quite a few here in the archive. What I want Kombai to do is add a Kanban board view in addition to this list view. Here is my initial prompt. I am passing it a mockup and I am telling it to alter thing as well as creating a detailed plan before making changes. The nice thing about Kombai is that it automatically determines whether a plan is needed or not. In this settings menu here, there's a plan before complex task. If it determines that the task that you have prompted is complex, then it's going to build a plan like this one. We can go into the plan and edit this as needed. Sometimes this will happen where it writes CSS variables rather than looking at the current themes that I'm using that is already specified in my global CSS. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell it to not use CSS and just use existing Tailwind classes. I'm just going to go ahead and approve the plan and let it start coding. So, all right, Kombai has done its work. Now you may notice that there has been 0 changes to my repo. Why is that? Well, it has made the changes in a sandbox, which is really interesting. These changes are not going to apply to my local repo until I save the changes. It has even created a page.kanban board.tsx, which is a preview or test page of what it has done. And the reason why it does this is because if I hit run in Sandbox here, it actually spins up a server and runs the project with the new changes in a sandbox. So you can preview the changes before you hit save. Unfortunately, this doesn't work for me because I'm working with an Electron application, so the setup is a little bit more complex. However, if you're working on a web application or web page that is strictly for the web, then this is going to work really well for you. Looks like it has created a start to a Kanban board, which okay, works fine, but there's still a bunch of issues. The first issue is making sure that this whole Kanban board actually takes up the whole width of the page. Currently, right now, it only takes a third of the page, which is kind of weird. Makes sense for the list view, doesn't make sense for the Kanban board view. Going back to Kombai, I have prompted to make the change so that the Kanban board takes the full width of the screen. So it has made the changes right here, gave me a rundown. I did go back and forth with it a few times. At first, both the control bar and the view actually changes width, which I only want the view to take up the whole page. After I got that working, the next thing I want to tackle is the look and feel of these cards, the styling. Just look at them, they're like clipped to the right side. So I went back to Kombai and I'm telling it to make sure it does not get cut off. However, what ended up happening was I just ended up asking it to redesign the Kanban cards. The reason why it's clipping, it was because it was using these cards but trying to fit them into the Kanban board view. So what I asked it to do, I had it create separate Kanban cards instead of just reusing the task list cards. So now we can see that the card actually fits into the Kanban column. While this does look a lot better, it still doesn't feel quite right. For example, there's just so much padding and weird empty space here. There's a lot of information that doesn't need to be there and weird formatting issues. What I did was I went back to Kombai, go back and forth with it until I got to this point where I now have a really nice looking Kanban board that only displays necessary information and doesn't look like it's completely cluttered. And notice how I have it all filtering as well. So one thing I wanted to mention is that Kombai was able to get horizontal and vertical scrolling working for me in this Kanban board as well. In terms of how complex this code is, it's relatively simple. In the task list, there's a Kanban board view. I can see that Kombai has created a bunch of files here inside the Kanban folder. These are all the components that's used in the Kanban board. The Kanban board, it contains the scroll container, which takes care of our vertical and horizontal scrolling. Inside that, there's multiple status column, which in turn contains the Kanban cards. And these Kanban cards then decides which type of card is going to be displayed depending on the status of each task. Overall, very straightforward, very easy for me to understand, which is a nice surprise because this could be so much more complex. You may be wondering, how much does Kombai cost? Well, I'm currently on the $40 a month plan and the limit is pretty generous. I've been using this thing really aggressively and I've used about 60-70% of the credits within the last week or so, and I've been pushing it really hard. They also have other pricing tier detailed on their website. I'll have a link down below so you can check all this out yourself. Again, I've been really enjoying the tool, so Kombai, if you're watching this, I would love some extra content creator perks, please. Anyway, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like, subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.